Hello, my name is Miguel Reese, and today I will be talking about the Dust Bowl. So, let's get into this. Okay, what was the Dust Bowl? So, in the 1930s, America faced a huge environmental disaster called the Dust Bowl. So, this Dust Bowl was pretty much these huge dust storms that affected many Great Plains in America. And with the Great Depression getting caught into the middle of it, it was really, really horrible. For example, some of these states that were affected by the Dust Bowl were Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado, New Mexico, and Texas. Some people migrated out of these states just because it was so bad. I mean, I don't blame them. Just the conditions were horrible. They had kids, whatsoever. And yeah, so what caused this Dust Bowl? So some of the key factors here were the very powerful winds, no rain, and the droughts. And with the Great Depression, it made things so much worse. For example, if we see this image right here, it shows people lined up for bread. It's called a bread line. And since bread was so cheap during the Great Depression, that's what people could afford. And so, with this in mind, this caused farmers to expand many, many lands, and it made them harvest even more wheat for to produce more bread. And so with these factors in mind, since these farmers were using so much land, there was not enough water. Obviously, so there was no droughts, there was no rain, and so with these key factors, many of these areas were dry. So there was nothing holding the dirt down. So with these powerful winds, it pushed this dirt off of the land and created these huge dust bowls as we see in this picture. Um, some of the effects were bad, were bad. So let's see. For example, dust pneumonia. Dust pneumonia affected many of little children and older adults. And what pretty much what dust pneumonia was a sickness, was silicosis that clogged up the lungs and killed some of these people. It is estimated that between hundreds to thousands of people died. It's just not known that died to dust pneumonia. Farmers were also losing their lands because, well, they depended on these farms. This was their income, their home. So when they couldn't afford it, they had to migrate out to different states. So also, grasshopper infestations were really bad at this time because these grasshoppers like these warm, dry areas, and they would eat all the vegetation that was left over and green plants. And well, it's just an inconvenience to have these and infestations during these times. So people were also freaking out about this. And the Black Sunday was this huge, huge black cloud that caught people by surprise on April 14th, 1935. And yeah, people were not able to drive. They were seeking shelter. I think a man even walked 2 miles just to get to his house, which is insane to me. I probably wouldn't have gotten home. So some of these consequences were that people were migrating into other states. For example, people from Oklahoma were moving to California, and they were often discriminated, and they were called derogatory terms I'd rather not say. But pretty much what these terms were that they were calling them dirty, poor, and pretty much below them. Some of the solutions were that the Great Plains Shelter Act was pushed. So pretty much this act was imposed by Franklin Roosevelt when he became president. So this opted people to plant 200 million trees from Texas all the way to Canada. Another thing that helped was educating farmers. They were better at soil conservation, and with this actually reduced eroded land by half. So this is still talked about today just because we're still in a drought in California, even though that we might not. It's possible we can face something like the Dust Bowl, but places like in New Mexico or other Great Plains that are affected by the dust storms are in risks. It's something that we want to keep in mind, just because we don't want to make the same mistake again, because it's very expensive and we don't want to hurt millions of people. And